Hello everyone, welcome to part 3 of making my first violin with zero professional training. So today we're going to be profiling the edges in preparation for installing the purfling. Now I have seen a number of makers install the purfling beforehand and then work down these profiles, but according to a detailed article I read from the British maker Roger Hargrave, he believes that the Cremonese masters, say Stradivari, Amati, Guarneri, etc., all carved this profile channel in advance of installing the purfling. It's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but I decided to go with this method just because, to me, it made logical sense. Only after I did this did I learn that apparently it's best to use the purfling cutter in 2 hands to stabilize it. Carving out these corners for a first time was pretty tricky. I'm definitely going to use something other than an X-Acto knife the next time I try this. I also left my purfling pick too wide for removing these from the channel. More on that later. So now I'm using hot hide glue to glue these in place. I didn't do a very good job of leveling the platform all the way around. In an effort to trim back the purfling, there's one spot in particular where I went a little bit through it. I thought of trying to go back and fix it, but I'd probably end up making it worse, so instead I just decided to leave it as is and continue blending the purfling channel with the rest of the arching so that it looks like one holistic arch all the way throughout. One question that does get asked a lot is why use scrapers instead of sandpaper? Well, the problem is that sandpaper is too flexible and it also leaves dust in the wood pores, whereas scrapers, they're flexible enough just to work around the spots where they need to, but they're also rigid enough to hold their shape so that they help to smooth out any irregularities. At this point, the profile for the outer face of the back is done. Now it's time to turn my attention to the front plate. But remember how I mentioned that I left my purfling pick a little bit too wide? About that. While I was digging out the channel of the front, I ended up popping out some segments along the bottom edge. In order to fix that mistake, I had to use a very sharp chisel to clean these holes, inlay some patches, and then trim them back. And by the time I was done, you'd barely even know they were ever there. Can you see them in this picture? I'll circle them for you. Doing the rest of the purfling and trimming it back went pretty smoothly. This part was definitely very satisfying to do. With both outer faces of the plates done, it's time to start hollowing out the back and the top. Also a very satisfying process. This homemade thickness caliper was essential for me to be able to measure any high spots so that I could then knock them down. And now it's time to give the front plate its signature look by cutting the F-holes. Big thanks to my friend Joshua for lending me the use of his Cricut machine in cutting these templates. Just a little hole to get things started, and then I go at it with my coping saw. It was a little awkward at first because I had forgotten the proper way to use a coping saw in this manner. I need to have a raised platform with a notch cut into it, and that makes for a much more stable cut. And now comes some meticulous knife work to clean up these gentle swooping curves. The knife work around the lobes of the F-holes was the trickiest spot because the grain direction keeps changing constantly, and if you go the wrong direction, you're going to lift the grain and blow it out. And with the F-holes completed, that is it for this part of the video. Stay tuned.